participated in and condoned the violence in our community and in our world.
Forgive us, we pray, for our lack of courage, and give to us eyes that do not refuse to see, ears that desire to listen, and voices that will speak for those who cannot.
We have turned a deaf ear to victims of domestic violence. We have not believed their stories. We have not provided them a safe haven. We have been silent as people are murdered by their partners and children by their parents.
Forgive us, we pray, for our lack of courage, and give to us eyes that do not refuse to see, ears that desire to listen, and voices that will speak for those who cannot.
We have preferred to not get involved. We speak out against trafficking, but we allow the exploitation of women, youth, men, and children in our media, on our televisions, and in our movies and video games.
Forgive us, we pray, for our lack of courage, and give to us eyes that do not refuse to see, ears that desire to listen, and voices that will speak for those who cannot. Amen.
Let us bow in silent confession. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. God, who is love, forgives you all your sin. Abide in love and seek justice for all.
When they land on the ground and the water comes down from the sky, a milkweed plant will grow. And let me tell you, if you don't pull them, they get really tall. And before you know it, your garden is full of milkweeds, which is why I have so many of these milkweed pots. Now, some people will take that these are weeds. Yes, but the truth is that butterflies love weeds. They eat the milkweed, and and my dogs love them too, apparently, because they carry them around on them everywhere. See how sticky they are? See that? Isn't that the weirdest thing? So what happens is the dogs roll by, and they brush up against it, and before you know it, that's right, they've got part of the milkweed with them, and they're carrying the seeds everywhere. Same thing with the squirrels and the rabbits. I know, just like everywhere. The only interesting thing about this is, does anybody else get itchy when you go to pull the milkweed pods? You get itchy? Anybody? I get really itchy. It's like, it makes my skin itch. And so some days I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh, I should pull that up, and I don't want to get itchy. And I wonder sometimes if that isn't another way that the plant has to keep growing. Like all the good gardeners are like, no, I don't want to get itchy, so we don't pull them up. Anyway, the thing that I thought was cool is these are bursting with life. They want to grow. And that's the way God made the whole world. Bursting and full of life. Ready to go all over and make life wherever you get blown. Gail, I'm sorry. But anyway, there you go. But when you go home, and you put these in the trash. Don't put them in your yard. Thank you. You want to look at it? You want to look? Take the thing, take the pot with you if you want. Look at it. No? Okay. Let's pray. Prepare our hearts, minds, and souls, O Lord, to heed and be changed by your holy word. Amen. Last week, we began looking at Genesis, at the story of Abram, Sarai, and Lot. And we looked in particular at chapters 11 through 15 as God led them to the land of Canaan, a land that the Lord had promised would be theirs forever. And in this land there came a time of great famine. And so they traveled to Egypt, where Abram and Sarai made the choice to pretend that Sarai was Abram's sister. As her brother, Abram received many gifts, goats, sheep, and male and female slaves from Pharaoh for his sister Sarai. And then when Pharaoh learned that Sarai was in fact Abram's wife, Pharaoh gave them more gifts to get them to leave and to make up for his unintended sin. On account of Sarai, Abram and Lot had so many goats and sheep and male and female slaves that the promised land could not support them all, and Lot left for the city of Sodom. Abram and Sarah have everything you could ask for, except Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. The land was fertile, they had many sheep, but they have no children. Now Sarai had an Egyptian slave girl whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, "You see that the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my slave girl. It may be that I shall obtain children by her." Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her slave girl, and gave her to her husband, Abram, as a wife. He went into Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her owner, Sarai. Sarai said to Abram, "May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my slave girl to your embrace. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me." But Abram said to Sarai, "Your slave girl is in your power. Do to her as you please." Then Sarai dealt harshly with her slave girl, and the slave ran away from her owner. The angel of the Lord found the slave, found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, the spring on the way to shore. And the angel said, "Hagar, slave girl of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" Hagar said, "I am running away from my mistress, owner, Sarai." The angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your owner and submit to her." The angel of the Lord also said to her, I will so greatly multiply your offspring that they cannot be counted for the multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Now you have conceived and shall bear a son. You shall call him Ishmael, for the Lord has given heed to your affliction. He shall be a wild ass of a man, with his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he shall live at odds with all his kin. So Hagar named the Lord who spoke to her, You are El Roi, which in Hebrew means, You are the God who sees me. For Hagar said, Have I really seen God and remained alive after seeing him? Therefore the well was called Bir Lahai Roi. It lies between Kadesh and Bered. Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I love Eli Wiesel, but I think he gets it wrong when he asked, how can Jewish history begin with a domestic quarrel between a rich elderly mistress and her young servant? I think that's the image that many of us have in our minds about Hagar and Sarah, is that it's a quarrel between an older woman and her young servant girl. And because the young girl is young, foolish, and pregnant, she becomes hysterical and runs away. And then fatherly God finds her and brings her home. We hold that image because it brings us comfort. It's easy. It's kind of sweet. And the translators make that really easy by their word choice. Until I did a deep study of the Hebrew and began to see connections, and the power of the words became more clear, that's the image I held too. But Sarai and Abram are in the place that God set them. Canaan is a good land, one they have traveled for years to get to, and it's all part of God's promise, God's covenant. But now they want the second half of the covenant, and they want it, they need it. They strongly crave children. They've been promised children, but Sarai has no life within her. The Lord has stopped her. Like a famine on the land, she has no life to give herself and her husband. And she is unwilling to wait for God's promise to be kept. Sarah, like Eve, wants what she wants, and she wants it now. So she breaks the covenant promise, and Abram is complicit, passively going along. Sarah blames God for this break, saying, God has not delivered. And so Sarah uses slave girl. I mean, that's the point of having slaves, to be used. She's an Egyptian. She's far from her home. She belongs specifically to Sarai, who can do with her as she will. So Sarai tells her husband Abram, since the Lord has prevented me from having children, go into my slave girl. Perhaps I may have sons to build me up. Her intent is to take whatever children the slave has. And there it is. That's the sin. This desire for self and turning away from God's promises. The using of someone else. Slave girl becomes pregnant. And now Sarai and slave girl are pitted one against the other because now slave girl has something of value, of more value than her own life, the life of this child within her. Sarai cannot provide such a life, cannot give a child to Abram, but slave girl can, and Sarai is furious. So Sarai looks for someone else to blame. This time it's her husband Abram. You are to blame for the wrong done to me. The wrong done to her is that slave girl looked down on her mistress, and Sarai becomes violent against the slave girl, dealt harshly with her so that life is intolerable. These are the same words that will be used later to describe the suffering the Egyptians caused the Israelite slaves. So harsh, her life is at risk. And so, late in pregnancy, slave girl leaves the only home she has. She takes the most precious, the only thing that is truly hers, and she heads towards Egypt. Hundreds of miles lie between her and Egypt. And on that road, she is found by the angel of the Lord, who is seeking her at a spring on the road to Shur. And the word of the Lord is spoken. Hagar, slave girl of Sarai, where have you come from? Where are you going? Hagar. The angel of the Lord knows her name is Hagar. Abram and Sarai never speak Hagar's name. She is only a slave to them. But the Lord knows. And then the Lord knows even more. Slave girl owned by Sarai. Some of the other pastors in my class just hated that God calls her a slave girl, but I think it's important. The Lord knows where we are and what's going on in our lives. Slave girl has been a part of her life forever, and the Lord knows it, calls it what it is. There is no mistake that the Lord has sought and found her. There by a spring, the Lord asks and listens to Hagar. God seeks a relationship with her, to know and be known. Where have you come from, and where are you going? But her answer is only the past. Because Hagar has no future. As far as she knows, she has no plan, no way to get out. She couldn't stay in that house. At that house, she fears for her life and the life of her baby. But there's no hope in that desert wilderness either. She is at a point of no hope, no future. And the Lord gives such a sad response. Hagar, you must return, and you must submit. And doesn't our heart break? That's so wrong, so messed up. That's not the answer that we want God to give. We want God to say, I'll make it all right for you. Can't the Lord do something to make this right? The reality of her situation is terrible, and there are no good choices. She could continue on that road, but there is an imminence to her pregnancy. The baby is going to come soon. She's in the desert wilderness. There is no one else to help her. She is all alone. It is no place for life to start. On the other hand, Sarah almost killed her and the baby. Life, maybe. That is not the final word of the Lord. God has two more blessings for Hagar. The Lord has heard her oppression and her affliction. She will have this child. Sarai will not take him. His